When Agnieszka first told me about her experience with stress and how it impacted her son's physical health, I knew we had to do an episode together. In this episode, you're going to get insights into that experience and much more. Agnieszka is unlike most of my guests because she hasn't experienced burnout, and yet she is a go-getter and has had a successful career. So what made her different? How did she become immune to burnout? She's about to share her experiences and insights, and I'm sure you're going to have plenty of takeaways from this conversation. Hey there. Welcome to the Burnout Isn't Necessary podcast, where we delve into the world of stress, burnout, and the science behind it all. Over a decade ago, I faced burnout as a management consultant, experiencing an emptiness that I wouldn't wish on anyone. But here's the truth. My burnout wasn't necessary, and it's not necessary for you either. I'm Hannah Holden, and together with my amazing guests, we share our real-life experiences with stress and burnout. We explore the science behind stress, offering practical tips to help you navigate those challenging moments in life. Our goal? To empower you to prevent burnout from taking over your life. I am passionate about stress mastery and preventing burnout, and I'm here to guide you to a more balanced, fulfilling life. So let's go. Burnout isn't necessary, and I'm here to show you why. So, I have the pleasure of welcoming Agnieszka Stalder to the podcast today. Agnieszka is a transformation coach who specialises in reawakening people's passion and energy for their work by helping them to discover their purpose. She helps them to create a life where they wake up each day feeling energized, motivated, and confident in their direction, a life where they achieve the goals they set for themselves and they're thriving at work because it fulfills them deeply, which I think sounds like the complete opposite to burnout. So welcome to the podcast, Agnieszka.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Yes, I'm planning to bring the opposite of burnout to this podcast. Exactly. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So when we first got talking, we had a conversation about how stress was showing up for you and how it was impacting other members of your family. And I thought that would be, that's where this conversation started between us. So let's take us back to that conversation and invite everybody else into it. So could you explain your experience around that?
Yes, with pleasure. I'll be very happy to share my personal experience lived firsthand about that. So when my son was born, he was born healthy. He's 3 years old now, and he was born completely healthy. He, cried a lot. He was grumpy all the time, but I figure out it can be normal for babies, right? He was healthy. And when he was around 4 months old, I believe, we started to observe red patches on his skin. And so we went to all the doctors in Geneva, and we got creams prescribed, we got diet change, milk changed, and nothing was helping. Nothing was helping, It was just getting worse and worse. And to be honest, when I look on the pictures, as a reminder, pictures of him and his skin when he was 1 year old, it is really scary. And by his first birthday, his skin was so bad, so bad, that during his birthday party, it was summer, everybody could see his skin. People were asking me questions. And one person suggested seeing an energy therapist. And you probably know, Hannah, those moments when you have this huge resistance to something, and suddenly it all drops down because the pain you carry is so much bigger, is so much bigger. Right? So that was me, because I wasn't really believing in that. But at that point, I was ready to try anything to help my son. So I took an action. I'm a coach. I took action, and I found an energy therapist in Geneva who was specialized in treating skin condition. I called him on the phone, and we were speaking French. My French is good. And he said, I should come alone. I should come by myself. And I was like, but did you get it? I'm not the problem. My son suffers from eczema, not me. Okay. And he said again, come alone. So I did. And so this person, the therapist, happened to also have a coaching training. He asked me several powerful questions. And, quite fast, I understood that I was under huge stress. Like during those months of course, due to welcoming our baby, right? It was a huge change in my life, but also other events that happened in my life. I was under huge stress for a long period of time. And I went for 2 sessions with that person. I've made my realizations. I apologized to my son. I apologized to myself, to my family, for doing that to us and holding this stress and putting it on him. I started to breathe. And I swear, like, so this therapist never told me like how fast we will see the improvement, but his skin was clear after 5 or 6 weeks. It was incredible. And the story is not, this is not where the story ends, because my son, from time to time, he does get some skin rash, red patches on his skin again. And this is the time when my husband would come to me and say, Agnieszka, it's time to relax. So we really use it as a barometer for our family. Like we can measure the stress, the family stress, by looking at my son's skin. It is incredible.
And so when you experienced stress the first time, you believed that was around the stress of getting used to a new family member, a little person's life that you're now responsible for, and all of the changes that go with early parenting. Is that the source of the stress that you were experiencing at that time? Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Also that. I think I was expecting it's gonna be extremely easy. I was, I'm an expat, so my mother wasn't around, and I thought I'm gonna make it, and like, oh, it's gonna be just amazing to be just 3 of us. It wasn't. And so like we had also troubles with breastfeeding, and it drove me to even very short postpartum depression, but still. And at the same time, I also had all the questions around the career.
Okay. And now you say that you can see you can see how your stress levels affect him even now. And now is that stress that's kind of unrelated to him, but stress that you're experiencing, in your life that's not necessarily in the family. Does that also show up for him?
Exactly.
Well, because it's interesting, because that first stress that you experienced was just kind of very related to the relationship that you had with him, whereas now it can be it sounds like it can be stress that's caused like stress that you're carrying that has absolutely nothing to do with the family unit, that's still showing up. That's really interesting.
Absolutely. And like he's amazing. I think every mother would say that about her child, but he really is amazing, like we have amazing relation, and I'm happy to be his mom, and I'm fulfilled as mother.
Sensitive little soul.
Yes. And like we are connected. Like you cannot neglect that we are so connected that whatever stress I live at work or other life situations, it shows up.
That's so interesting. And so, just for listeners' sake, so that's showing up in him as eczema, which is, I've experienced terrible eczema when I was younger. So I understand. And it's awful to see such small children struggling with, you've experienced it, the cracking of the skin. It can just be so uncomfortable. So
uncomfortable and painful. And Hannah, thank you for sharing that with me. I did as well. I did for 25 years. I was a person having eczema, and I believe that some of the pictures you've seen of me, you wouldn't be able to recognize me. Like it was so bad, And like I spoke about it to my mom. I asked her, like, was there a stress event that happened when she was pregnant or when I was born? Like we never managed to get to the core of that. But as soon as I became independent, like as soon as I left to Sweden and I took my life in my hands and I fell in love, really, it felt like I started to breathe, and my skin just also started to breathe, and now it's fine,
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think it's so interesting how the body can show up certain symptoms. And so I'm thinking like the skin is is our barrier between the outside world, and it's also clearly our physical boundary. And the fact that your eczema cleared up at the point where you left the family home and you were responsible for your own boundaries and your own life. And like it kind of, there's a metaphor which seems to have shown up, like maybe it's just really interesting.
Yes. True. It's some kind of boundaries. Exactly.
Yeah. So what about your clients? What have you seen? How has stress shown up for your clients? And have you ever seen anything similar to what you've just described with any of your clients?
I actually did. I can remember very well one client of mine. Obviously, she contacted me for improving her career situation. Okay, so even though I am a wellness coach, so I take a person as a whole, not only the career and your CV, but also you, how you feel, do you sleep well, etc. I ask those questions on the welcome pack and then on the first session. But I think people don't expect, let's say, career coach or transformation coach to be asked those questions, so they don't really make a connection, right? So we never spoke about her skin condition until she had confidence, like with me. We built up this confidence, and she said she had a skin rash on one part of her body, and I was like, okay, and I took a note of that, right? And then, like, after several sessions, I would ask her, so how is your skin? And then at the end, I would ask her, how is your skin? And she was like, oh, no doctors could help, but now it's gone. So I explained her, like, how I think it works. And then more and more often, I started to see it with other clients, because I have realized it's not only me. Like, if it happened to me, like a person, me, if it happened to my son, and if it happened to one client of mine, there is a big chance it happens to many, many people. They just don't speak about it, right? So I really started to insist on those kind of questions. And so what I've seen, of course, it is red patches and eczema. And this is what I've seen in my practice, but also becoming less social, or having aches in your body and troubles to fall asleep. I also seen digestive problems, even people vomiting, putting on weight. And I think it's so related. It's so related because we can't separate body and brain, right? And so right now, how I work with my clients is, of course, we do set goals, we do set objectives. If it's career objectives, self-confidence objectives, this is what we set, and this is what they pay me for. But my satisfaction is like so much bigger if we actually manage to pinpoint some kind of course, I don't want to sound like I'm searching for and I'm hoping for them to have health issues, but if they are there already and we manage to improve them or they completely disappear, then I'm like, I've done a good work. Doesn't matter if you give me Google review 5 out of 5 or 3 out of 5. I know I did a great job, and I know you are feeling better, and I know you are feeling relieved. And honestly, I can recall 3 clients who told me, I've been to all the doctors in Geneva. They cannot find the reason for my skin rash. It happened like this. I never had it as a child. And then they said it was gone, So I think, as you were talking about body as a barrier, right? We should be so thankful to our bodies that they actually show us signs. It's an alert, right? Something's wrong. Take care of me. And we have a chance to act instead of, like, I want to invite everybody who's listening, if you like ever experience such problem, yes, I understand you would like to go to the doctor. I also went to the doctor. I spend those money, I spend this time, I spend this energy. But like, if you can ask yourself question, am I well? Am I actually happy and relaxed? And am I doing well? And do this introspection, I think it can be so, so helpful. And I want to say thank you to our bodies that they do send such signals before, hitting us with cancer directly, right? We have a chance to act. So let's take that chance.
Yeah, little warning signs. Yeah. As I said, I used to experience eczema, and in my adult life, past having a real problem with it, if I am in a stressful situation, I'm looking at my hands because that's where it shows up now. I will get the beginning, I get these tiny little blisters and they run along the inside of my fingers. And that will be how I'll experience stress, like how I'll experience eczema now, as like a warning sign that my stress is. I haven't pinned down a gut health expert yet. I want to for the podcast, and I'm touching on it now because I've seen some research that suggests that eczema is connected with gut health, and stress is definitely connected with gut health. And so what might be the root cause or the route through the body between stress and eczema is that stress disrupts our digestive system so badly that the barrier of our digestive system starts letting in certain foods, certain components of our food that would normally not actually enter the body, and we have a reaction to that, which is an inflammatory reaction. And for some people that is eczema. For other people it might be asthma.
Exactly.
We've got our own way of inflammation showing up for us. So I think that's fascinating. I'm not an expert. I'd love to dig into that more and have but I thought it worth mentioning because people who are listening might be trying to figure out, how does stress show up in our skin? How does that, I think that's potentially the root.
Exactly. And now when you're saying that, I remember, so my parents, since I had eczema, they tried everything. We also tried it, and we were actually treated for a long time with homeopathy. And so the doctor, homeopath, he said exactly that. We need to focus on her guts.
I think I'm trying to think if it's in Ayurveda or in Chinese medicine where they believe that the root cause of everything is the gut. I think it's Ayurveda, where everything comes back to the digestive system, and they always look at addressing the digestive system, and everything else will just fall in line if we sort that out. Really interesting. And I know that other people talk about how they've got food intolerances, so they have certain foods because otherwise eczema will show up, or whatever their health issue is shows up, and that in fact it could be stress that's making them more susceptible to that, which is why some people will experience a food intolerance but only temporarily, and then it goes away and they're like, oh, I can eat it again. I don't know why. Like, oh wow, you've finished moving house or whatever other life transition. That might be it. Anyway, yes, moving on. So one of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about, so I had a question from a listener who pointed out that almost every guest that comes on this podcast has experienced burnout, and through that experience then looked to heal themselves, and then often becomes passionate about the thing that helped them to heal them. So in my case, yoga, mindfulness, etc. So and my guest stories often echo that. Now, this listener was keen to hear from somebody who hasn't experienced burnout, and how do we achieve career success without hitting rock bottom and then fixing things? And I think that that's your experience. So I wanted to ask you if you could share something along those lines.
Yes, sure. I'll be happy to. So where do I start? I start with the fact that I believe that it all comes down to saying no. And like when we hear that we need to say no, we feel we are closing the door. But actually, when we say no to certain things, we say yes to other things, and we open other door. We say yes to perhaps ourselves, right? But I really want to go back to the first time I heard in my life, like the first time in my life, I heard that I had the right to say no. Because as you also understood, and you already made this connection between me leaving home and my skin condition improving, was how good girl I was trying to fulfill all the expectations of my parents, always saying yes, struggling so hard to fulfill their expectations. So the first time I heard I can say no, I was a child, and like I know exactly in which flat I was living at that time, so I'm pretty sure I must have been between 10 to 14 years old. And so at school, every few months we would have this school guidance counselor, a person who would just come to the class and have a little talk. She wasn't teaching us any subject, she was just coming to have a talk. And I believe if a kid would have a trouble at home or at school, she would be the one to help them with that. And so like I can't recall exactly what she said. I can recall, and I remember very well the classroom we were at, and I remember very well that it was the first time I heard I could say no. I could say no to things. I could say no to people, to friends, that it was actually okay, you know? She also spoke about assertiveness. And in my head, I was like, aha. And of course, at that time, I wasn't aware at all of the impact it would have on my life. Like, I remember this scene like a movie, you know? It's crazy. But now I see it really was a huge aha moment. And like, I don't recall having such conversation with my parents, right? They are wonderful people. And I didn't have this conversation with them. And I was trying to always be a good girl and fulfill all their expectations. Yeah. So when you ask me about how does, successful career look like without burnout or even successful life, I think it's really crucial to set the boundaries, to respect yourself, also to be aware that you can express your opinion that is different from opinion of others. You can do that without being judged, without being excluded or coming as aggressive. And self-confidence and also clear communication are big ones in that. And of course, like it's not like I was always doing well on that side either, right? Like, of course, there were times when I had to push through. I would work until 10 p.m. when I was starting my career in Sweden as an engineer. I was working evenings, I was working weekends. And yes, I would do that at the beginning because I had to prove. First of all, it was in Swedish. I had to prove I can do it for myself. I can do it. I had to prove I can do it to my manager, right? In order to get my contract prolonged. I wanted to learn fast. I was, ambitious, young, going out of school. And of course, I had pressure of deadlines, right? But I think I understood quite fast that I can't be going on like this for a longer period of time. And also that I didn't have to, I had this amazing group leader at this time, and he was the best boss ever, like so much better than I am for myself right now. And there were times when we had to deliver some projects, but like I understood very fast that communication about that maybe it's not possible to do it this week, but maybe next Friday, right? Due to live events or just because it's much more work that the client or a group leader estimated. And like the earlier you have this conversation, the more honest you have this conversation, the better it is for everybody, including the client, right? So what working in Sweden really taught me is like that we are all humans, you are a human, that your boss is a human, your client is also a human. He also has kids. Maybe kids get sick. Maybe he needs to go earlier, leave job earlier to pick them from school. And I think this is like so important that sometimes you just need to have this one conversation and that's all you need. And then your stress drops down and also the pressure. The client is happy because he was noticed in advance that he will receive this project not on 2nd of July, but on 22nd. But he knows it, And so like this pattern of prioritizing your personal life, prioritizing or not, but like being aware that there is life behind, apart from job, right? And also that we are all humans. It really followed me also here in Switzerland when I was working as an engineer. I think also that my personal core values, so like identifying your personal core values can be helpful in that. For me, it's health, love, and freedom. And I believe it, like for me, it was natural that I need to prioritize my own health, especially having this eczema experience, right? and my life rather than so-called success, right? And like it was not always rosy, right? Especially when I started my own business, because then I became my own boss. I didn't have this amazing group leader I used to have in Sweden. The challenge was completely different, and because I'm probably like you, we are passionate, right? I am so passionate, extremely passionate about what I do. I do not see the time passing. So at some point, it drove me really to feel drained, to feel exhausted. And I think this is what people experience when they are burnout or just before, right? So like as soon as I felt this, and I felt it, I recall twice during the last 2 years. I took a break, I slowed down. And I always remember the consequences, health consequences, family consequences, like my son's skin as well, right? And by taking a break and slowing down, no, I don't mean I went to Bali for a retreat, right? I just slowed down like here and now. And one client could wait and one project could wait until I was recharged. Not until the point I could barely breathe, right? But until I felt, now I have this energy, I have this passion again, I can take on new things.
Okay. I've been making notes as you went through. So some of the things that you were saying, so learning to say no and that you can, setting boundaries, clear communications, but then I think you made a really interesting point around our own personal definition of success and how that links to our values. Because I agree with you that anybody who is entering burnout has, in one way or another, without realizing it, been working against their values. And that's and it's that internal dissonance that's created because you're doing one thing, but actually you believe in something else, or that you're compromising something else. And it's that dissonance that's created that drives that I feel is the source of burnout. And so, yeah, and I mean, for me, definitely, I over-indexed on I got all of my sense of worth and well-being, sense of worth from my performance at work. And so it was, I wasn't getting it elsewhere. And that created this negative spiral of, I'm going to do more work so that I can feel better about myself, so that people can tell me that I'm doing a great job. And I wasn't getting that. Like, I had compromised everything else. And yeah. So yeah, I
hear you.
Yeah. And the other point that I think that you made, which you've already made earlier as well, but it came up here, is about awareness of your body. So you are aware of how you're feeling and you're acting on that. And and I think that
listen to your body. Exactly. Listen, like stop.
You can do that. Yeah. And you can do that in the moment, like as in, if our conversation goes in a way that makes one of us feel uncomfortable, like we can do something about that in the moment. Or maybe it's something that's more kind of cumulative, where actually now I'm just feeling a bit drained and I'm noticing that. So yeah, body awareness. So I just want to summarize those points. Thank you. Yeah.
You managed to bring all the thoughts together. Amazing.
Yeah. Okay. And so you've touched on like values and avoiding burnout, but also let's talk about the link between purpose and success, a sense of purpose and success, and a sense of purpose and how that helps somebody avoid burnout. So let's talk a little about your view on purpose.
So it really isn't that far from the summary sentence you've given about values, right? So once we are clear on our purpose, when we know why we are doing something, whether it's in relationships or in career, it feels less draining because we have like different meaning and importance to this, right? And it comes with motivation. It's this intrinsic motivation that drives us rather than a deadline or rather than a salary, right? So I really believe that when you know why you are doing something, you are more involved for yourself whether you're working for someone or not, and you are more motivated, whether you are working for someone or not. And also, when you have defined purpose, it helps you to bounce back, right? Like once you feel there's a challenge, it helps you to bounce back. Or even if you had to take on this challenge, you can always get back because you understand the bigger picture and you understand why you are pushing hard, right? I push hard because I have this mission in these countries, and my employer is gonna build this project in these undeveloped countries. This is what I'm pushing hard.
Yeah.
And I think also, like, when you know what your purpose is, it makes you feel more optimistic because, like, you are more optimistic because you contribute. You know what your purpose is, basically.
Yeah. I think that you can take what you've just said at in many different ways, in many different contexts. So let's just I'll illustrate what I mean. So I think that you've been talking like on a big scale, like finding your purpose, finding your passion, having that big picture of kind of what you're here to do. But then I think you can take it down to like the story that you told earlier, where you were saying that you had a lot of resistance about working with an energy healer and you weren't sure if that stuff would work. But the bigger picture was, I'll try anything to help my son get better. And I've tried, I'm running out of ideas. So I'll take that idea and I'll try it. And so again, it's like you knew what the bigger picture was. You were prepared to do the thing because you had something far more important motivating you. And then I'm also thinking about how this applies to like how this could appeal to managers who are listening, because if you explain to your people why we're doing this thing, and that might be what's the purpose of the entire organization, or it might be we all have to fill in our timesheets, like, but this is why we have to do that. Yes, it's a chore. I can't stand timesheets. We understand why we need them, and I've been there as a manager trying to convince everybody to get them in on time. And like, if you explain the knock-on consequences of how it's associated with billing and how ultimately we need to bill our clients in order to be able to make money to be able to pay you guys, like, oh, pay us now. I'm
yes, please.
You know, so I think it's just, you can like take the principle that you've just described and apply it in so many ways, which is if people understand the bigger picture and why they're doing something, the doing of the thing just becomes so much easier. And when you hit the obstacles, it's easier to kind of go, well, I'm still going to do it, even though I'm not going to do it that way. Like, yeah.
And may I add one thing to all the managers listening, all the managers who are parents? I don't know about you, but in my case, and explaining to my son why we are doing things, why he cannot do one thing, or why we are gonna do certain thing in that way helps instead of giving orders, right?
Yes.
So like, it's there, it's present in your daily life. Take it also to work. It will help everyone.
Yeah. Yes. I have an 8-year-old who it's far easier to just explain why. And in fact, sometimes it's easier just to tell her, like, so the dog broke glass on the kitchen floor today. And so we asked her to wear shoes in the kitchen, not wander around barefoot. This is a good example. Like, if we just said, you have to wear shoes, we would have had massive resistance on principle, because she likes to remind us that she is her own person. She probably, you know, tomorrow she'll be wearing shoes around the house when I'm asking her not to, you know, like it's about her being her own person more than it is about the details. But if we say to her, glass has been broken on the floor, you might want to wear shoes. Your call, entirely up to you whether or not you do, but you know, you've got all of the information you need to make the decision.
Exactly.
You know, it's a bit like leading the horse to water and just seeing what happens. Without actually saying you need to drink. Yeah, very powerful with kids if you explain to them the situation and help them make their own decision. I don't know, there's probably an age where that's true, and there's an age where you just have to tell them what to do, but certainly 8-year-olds, it's easier to convince them if you've given them some context.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about the modalities that you use when you work with clients. So you've described that you're a coach. What does it look like? So for a client who's working with you, what does that look like? What modalities do you use?
So I use classical coaching, I'm a certified coach. I use classical coaching, powerful questioning, lots of exercises. This is when we work with our brain. As you know, I'm an engineer, right? So I love logic and I love specific measurable results. So we do use lots of brain. Um, we do brainstorming, and classical coaching tools is something my clients get in every session. But I don't think we only have brain, right? We also have body. We have body that expresses, first of all, when it suffers, as we spoke about, for example, with eczema, but also is a powerful tool to answer to some questions that we are struggling to answer with the brain, because we are so much in our head, thinking, perhaps this, oh no, finally not this. Overthinking, paralysis, analysis, all of that, self-doubt, it's all in our head. And like, if we can sometimes turn off our brains, and also it's like, it's good, it's good to take a break and then ask our bodies. And like, by asking our bodies, what I mean is I love to guide my clients on dance liberation, dance meditation, movement. We like, I incorporate that in my sessions. I also do workshops for groups, but if I work with a client one-on-one, I would also, when I decide it's needed, like we are too much in our head, we are not getting anywhere else using brain, I'm gonna turn on the music, the playlist, the special playlist I created for that, and we're gonna reach this clarity by moving. And to be honest, I did have some resistance. Some people were like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm not really into dancing. And at the end, I didn't have one person who didn't say thank you, who didn't send me a message, oh my God, Agnieszka, it was amazing. I did this and this and this afterwards. Finally, I have this clarity, this and that. Like, it is so, so powerful. So dance, but also movement in like in a, let's say, everyday form, walking. Sometimes I would decide with my client, today we're gonna have a walking session, and we're gonna have a walk around the lake or in the forest or by the river. Again, movement, right? We are talking, we are questioning, we are asking the brain, but just the fact of walking, it puts us already in a different state of mind. Like, more things are possible, if that makes sense, right? And recently, I have also added senses and aromatherapy to my practice. So I also use essential oils.
Interesting. Yeah. So many things that you just said that I could come back to you on. Kinesiology, which is so fascinating, how you can use kinesiology to tap into the subconscious mind. Because I think like when we are, as you were describing, in our heads and we're thinking these things over, we've only got access to the conscious mind, and yet the answers could be in our subconscious. And so by getting to the body, that's like, I really believe that the subconscious and the body are really closely connected. And when we say that we're all in our heads and we're in our mind, we're in that conscious thinking, like overthinking zone. Yeah, so that's, did you want to say something about that?
Yes. And I wanted to ask you, I'm sure, Hannah, it happened to you as well, right? You as an entrepreneur, there were surely times when you block the time, oh, I'm gonna figure out this, or I'm gonna write post about this. And you're there in front of the computer and you can't. And then you go for a walk. And on the walk, you feel like, oh my God, I can write this and this and this. And you start recording the message for yourself so that you remember. Or you do a yoga session. And after a yoga session, you feel like, oh, I have decided. I took the decision. This is what I'm going to do. It happened to me milliards of times. Yeah,
me too. And I also sometimes set myself an intention at night that I'm going to either wake up in a certain mood, or by tomorrow morning I'm going to have the answer. And it generally happens, especially on the mood thing. Like if I like, okay, so I've allowed myself to be in a funk and be grumpy and be disappointed, and like, I've hit one of these obstacles that we were talking about, and I've allowed myself to experience it today. Tomorrow, enough. Okay. We're going to pull ourselves together. We're going to put our big girl pants on, and we're going to sort stuff out. And it tends to work.
Awesome.
Okay. So what is it that you're working on at the moment? So I'm aware that we don't have much time left. We're going to wrap up shortly, but what is it that you're working on at the moment?
So like, just to be very clear, what clients come to me usually is because they feel stuck, they lost their motivation, they feel drained, and they are very successful and ambitious people who achieved lots of things in their careers, but either they don't know what's next, or they don't know how to achieve what they want, or simply they want to go from good to great. And also, part of my clients, or all of them, struggle with work-life balance and prioritizing themselves. So today I work with people who are employees, right? And with entrepreneurs. And I really want to create a new offer to be more clear about what I propose, and for people to be able to understand what they can get exactly out of working with me. So I'm in the process of creating this offer, and in order to get this offer right and respond to the needs of my future clients, I currently run like 25-30 minute interviews, questions and answer sessions with people, with those successful people, ambitious people who feel stuck, who feel lost in their direction, who want to go from good to great, but they don't know how. And it is a part of market research. So like, I have nothing to sell on those calls. I just need them to tell me what their challenges are, so that I will be able to best respond with my future offer. And so perhaps I could say that if anybody feels that way and would love to give me this time, and in exchange to get a mini coaching session to solve little challenge of the moment, I will be very happy to take up this person. And you can just contact me on LinkedIn, because this is where me and Hannah met, so I believe it will be the easiest.
Sure. Okay. And I will include your contact details and everything that anybody needs to know in the show notes.
Thank you so much.
That sounds interesting. And let me know. I'm happy to be one of your calls, if that would help you.
Do you feel stuck or unmotivated, Anna?
Little bits in some places, but also good to great sounds appealing. Okay. Before we go, one final question for you. What is your biggest message for the world?
So my biggest message for the world would be yourself. Be authentic. Be yourself. You've been created as a whole, and you are good enough. You are worth. You are perfect the way you are, as long as you embrace your authentic self and yourself fully. If you're trying to pretend to be someone else, it's not gonna work. But if you embrace your true self, it's gonna be all good, and it's gonna be perfect, because you've been created as a whole perfect creature. So be yourself.
Beautiful.
And be proud. Yeah.
That's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
To you too, Hannah. Thank you so much for this time.
You're welcome. Connect with Agnieszka on LinkedIn, or find out more about her work via her website, which is www.staldercoaching.ch. Thank you for being part of Burnout Isn't Necessary. Our aim is to assist you in navigating stress and preventing burnout. If you found our conversations valuable, please consider subscribing and taking a moment to rate the podcast. Your feedback is essential. I want to hear from you. If you have questions or ideas for future episodes, share them with me. Your input can shape the content that we create. A common question I receive is where to start in managing stress, and everything starts with awareness. Stress impacts each of us in a unique way, and some stress symptoms can seem a little random, so I've created a checklist of symptoms to help you better understand how stress shows up for you. There's a link in the show notes. And a quick reminder, This podcast is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. It's not a substitute for professional advice. Stay tuned for more episodes, and until next time, take care of yourself.